Madam President.
The Republican leader is recognized.
The Biden administration has been working overtime to sell the American people a fantasy. The president would like working families who struggled under 2 years of soaring inflation believe their refrain that Bidenomics is working for America. The White House press secretary declared recently that, quote, people are feeling better about their personal finances. If only that were true. Unfortunately, the American people have too many reasons to believe their financial outlook is worse today, worse than when the president took office. According to a survey conducted last month, just 24% of voters say the American economy is on the right track. Less than a third buy the claim that this administration's policies are bringing costs down for working families, and just 22% think inflation is getting any better. So, Madam President, no matter how many ways the administration officials spin the numbers, folks who work for a living and manage a family budget know that Bidenomics has made their lives harder. They know that prices have risen 16.6% since the president took office because they feel it every time they pay their bills. Energy prices, for example, are 38% higher than they were in January of 2021. Groceries are 20% more expensive. In Washington State, one man reported recently that soaring rent had forced him to move, take on a longer commute, spend more on gas, and put his goal of home ownership on hold. In Illinois, one woman told a reporter recently she had paid $90 for groceries that would feed her family of 3 for 3 days and might have to start visiting food pantries. Quote, you have no choice but to sacrifice, she said. So look at it this way. During the first terms of the last 4 administrations before this one, year-on-year inflation never cracked 4%. Under President Biden, it's happened 26 times. To borrow the president's own phrase, that is Bidenomics in action. As one top Democrat economist put it last year, this is Biden's inflation, and he needs to own it. So it's fitting that the president has finally slapped his name on our current economic situation. He's right to take credit. Working families won't be in this mess if he hadn't spent his first few months in office ramming $2 trillion in left-wing spending down the throat of our economy. So owning the runaway inflation Washington Democrats helped produce is one thing, but it's about time they focused on fixing it. Now, on a different matter, tomorrow the Prime Minister Meloni of Italy will visit Washington for a series of meetings. I look forward to welcoming her to the Capitol at an important time for our two countries' friendship and for Italy's role in the transatlantic alliance. Prime Minister Meloni took office as Europe faced its first large-scale land war in decades, and Italy faced the increasing economic vulnerabilities of reliance on China. By all accounts, she's addressed these challenges head-on. The Prime Minister has repeatedly asserted Italy's commitment to helping Ukraine defeat Russian aggression and rebuild its economy. And importantly, like some leaders, she's done so with refreshing clarity to the Italian people about their own country's concrete interests in helping Ukraine defend itself. Earlier this spring, in an address to the Italian Senate, Prime Minister Meloni summed up the reality. She said, "We are also sending arms to Ukrainians to prevent the possibility of having to use them ourselves one day. We're sending arms to Ukraine also to keep the war far away from the rest of Europe and our home." Not vaguely defining philanthropy, just cold, hard investments in our own country. At the NATO summit in Vilnius earlier this month, Italy's leader rightly declared that, quote, "Our freedom has a cost. What is invested in defense comes back tenfold, 100-fold, in terms of our ability to defend our national interests." Secretary General Stoltenberg has recognized that Prime Minister's strong personal commitment to NATO and to our transatlantic alliance. And the Italian government has expressed its intention to accelerate progress toward the alliance's 2% defense spending target. I hope and expect to see Italy and all NATO allies meet this goal. This shift in Italy's approach to defense and security policy reflects what allies are recognizing across Europe, that the long holiday from history is over, and that investments in hard power are overdue. But as Prime Minister Maloney meets with President Biden tomorrow, it's important to remember that our shared interests extend beyond Europe. Italy is rightly concerned about growing instability, terrorism, and migration flows in Africa, yet another area where Russian and Chinese influence has played a corrosive and threatening role. America has a shared interest in keeping pressure on the global terrorist resurgence that has followed the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. I'm also encouraged that the Italian government is unraveling its involvement in China's so-called Belt and Road Initiative, another indication that European allies are taking steps to protect themselves against China's economic coercion. So if we are serious about competition with the PRC, we need to work more closely with allies and partners who share our interest in preserving a world of free and fair trade and secure policy chains. So I'm hopeful that President Biden and Prime Minister Maloney have a productive meeting tomorrow. I look forward to discussing our two nations' common challenges and priorities with her directly. In the meantime, I'm hopeful our colleagues will continue to work diligently to provide for the common defense and equip America and our allies to meet and deter common threats. I suggest the absent quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin.